Lemon Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi there, welcome to another Lemon Amiga Playguide and review. This week we're taking a look at Obsession, produced, developed and released by Unique Development Studios in Sweden and released on the Amiga platform in June 1995. The demo-like introduction screen presents the 4 tables on offer in this pinball game, and by pressing that spacebar we can also check out the high scores which save to disk on the WHD load version. You can see some of my high scores at the moment, most of which were scored during round 8 of the Lemon Amiga Games competition, which took place in June of last year, 2015. And so you will see at least one of the best runs that I scored during that competition, and some of my practice runs on this playthrough. So let's just press F1 and check out the first table, Aquatic Adventure. As you can see, Obsession, or Pinball Obsession as it's sometimes known, is very much like the Digital Illusions pinball games which appeared on the Amiga, Pinball Dreams, Pinball Fantasies and Pinball Illusions, and by pressing that spacebar we can enter the first of these 4 tables on offer in this game. First of all, that I have actually switched the sound effects off on this playthrough, but yes, there are sound effects which make a great noise, and well, unfortunately I find those pretty annoying when I'm trying to score a high scoring run. So for this table you'll find the music, and music is great on this first Aquatic Adventure, certainly fitting to the job, and we can gain power-ups and score multipliers just like any pinball game, and we can also accumulate things as well, and we can find hidden traps and ramps and things like that. So you can see that this table has been well put together, and there's certainly lots of adventure on offer and lots to keep that casual pinball player entertained. And yes, there is a mega score bonus if you manage to light all the lights as usual, and just like the Pinball Fantasies games, the player can rescue falls if they can press that spacebar right at the last moment, and you'll have to pull down the back arrow key to charge up the ball so that you can fire that thing from the get-go, and usually 100% and nothing less on these tables is required to shoot the ball into action. So let's use that mechanic, and sometimes you can gain a skill shot 1 million straight from the go, but most of the time that's a skill shot and it's very difficult to get that in. But it's very easy to get the ball in the hole because the flipper width is quite wide, and so sometimes the ball will disappear down that hole whether you wanted it to or not and simply wipe out. But as I said, the good news is it's easy to rescue or wipe out, and sometimes you can be lucky and get chain reactions which boost that score through the roof. Most of the pinball games, if you can't hit that thing on the spot, then you can sometimes balance the ball on the back of the flipper and you can aim directly for what you are aiming for. And that is possible, but in my opinion sometimes it's best just dive in, literally, and see what you get from a random shot in the right direction. And if I hit the central ramp I'll gain some kind of bonus, but the big scores can be really accumulated by hitting the dolphin. And from there you should be able to walk out with some kind of a bonus. At the moment I'm aiming for the skill ramp on the right, not quite making it. The table design is very logical and great on this first table, and the tables were designed by Peter Zetterberg, and he was from Sweden, of course. All these guys were from Sweden. The company Unique Development Studios was founded in 1993 for this very game, and it didn't appear until summer of 1995. But Peter Zetterberg went on to create the levels in the world's scariest police chases, which I had for the PS1, which appeared in 2001, and went on to become the senior project manager of games like Halo, Spartan Assault and Spartan Strike, and the Gears of War Ultimate Edition. Pressing the S key, we can switch on the sound effects, and the N key will switch on and off that music as well, so we can have music or sound effects both together or nothing in this game. Just like most pinball games, if you fail to hit those targets, then it can be frustrating bouncing around in no man's land waiting to hit a target. But having to hit that target is no problem when we gain millions, and it's great to earn the millions in this game. And I forget my highest score, but we won't get anywhere near that on this playthrough, and it's very difficult with that ball going off, because yes, you can knock that ball off by accident, but luckily we have 5 balls to play in this game. And let's try that skill shot. Yes, we can make that at 90% sometimes, and it's great to get these chain reactions and get a great bonus. And we can even save by hitting that kickback. We can even save a fall, and that will kick that back onto the screen. So just like the Stones and Bones level, sometimes there are extra pickups and things which make this game playable, but as I say, when it's disappearing down that hole, unfortunately sometimes there is no way out. Gain a high score, we'll gain another great piece of music which is suitably jolly, and that passes on the back for gaining those several millions. Unfortunately not quite 10 million on this playthrough, but I hope that gives you some idea of the quality of this first table. Let's press escape, and by pressing escape we can change our table by returning back to the title menu, and unfortunately the title menu option does take some time to load off those discs. So let's skip straight towards the next of the 4 tables. This is perhaps one of the weakest, and is based on a spy scenario, and in this one we'll have to blast our way through this table for not much score at all. And the first caution is, do not blast the ball out of the launch at 100%, otherwise it will disappear down the hole very quickly. No, we'll have to balance the launch speed, and so let's try that at 70%. That should land us on that flipper. The first thing to do is to hit the trap on the very left hand side, which should be flashing, and by hitting those 3 lights in sequence, then we can start the initiation process, and then these ramps will be worth something. But with so much going on this screen, it's so much easier to hit nothing and to rebound and simply die. And so sometimes slip-ups can be made, sometimes when going for those ramps, trying to go for those hit lights, and sometimes we can't always rescue that, and that's kind of deflating on this particular table. But at least there is lots going on once the players worked out this power system from the launch. This table, it's possible for that ball to get stuck as well, so aiming that thing high and getting that thing right on the top of that screen is usually helpful, and then if it does get stuck on those buffers it will give us a lot of score. And we're still trying to hit the 3 hit lights, and until we do that, well, we won't gain much score on this particular table. You may notice we can also flip the lights at the very top of the screen by using the normal paddles buttons. And where have we seen that feature before? Yes, this is a direct copy of the Digital Illusions games, as mentioned, and so far it has that polish and shine. And yes, this was a Swedish company, so Scandinavian companies creating pinball games were popular in the early 1990s. And this game sold well. You can see that there has been effort put into this, and there are many very bad pinball games actually on the Amiga, so this actually shines above those and it becomes playable, although as I say, this can be one of the weakest tables due to the frustration of trying to hit all these traps. But if you press the spacebar, then you can nudge that ball back into action at any point, and we can press that spacebar quite a few times, and that will reset if we stop pressing that spacebar. So we can press that quite a few times, and that will not freeze the table. We've managed to activate the very first mission, and sometimes the lights will light to show us how to complete that mission, and sometimes you simply have to hit a target. So that's mission accomplished. We gain 5 million points, and that's the quick way to earn money and score in this game. And unfortunately there are many slower ways which will take some time, and you can be incredibly lucky hitting that central pin, of course. But for the most part, it's hope that that thing will hit a target, and if you are good at pinball games, then you should be able to hit these targets perfectly every time by hitting that thing on the pixel. If not, well, just like me, you can blast and hope, and you can aim directly for those top lights, which I'm actually aiming for, and those will complete another bonus. Reminding us that we still have not managed to lit all the 3 water lights, and those are necessary. Those 3 things are definitely required on this level to really unlock the big scores. So while I continue fruitlessly, I'll just say the code was created on the Atari ST and converted to the Amiga by a number of guys. It was ported to the Amiga by Tord Jansen and Patrick Wardmark, and it was created, the code, on the Atari ST by Michael Brunstrom, who went on to Absolute Pinball in 1996 for the DOS machines, and then went on to Ignition with Peter Zetterberg in 1997, along with Hans Harold, who was the second coder in this game, and the ball physics were created by Kalle Lundqvist. Amiga, I'm not really getting much further on this table, and wipeouts like that don't really help, and that means it's game over. That means we do enter the Hall of Fame because it's pretty low, but only 7th in this case, and it's great that it does give us a long list of high scores. Let's skip on to the next table. This is Bats and Balls, which is a baseball table, and from here let's hope we have an easier ride. Four tables, I'd perhaps compare this to the $1 Billion Game Show because we only have a couple of ramps on here, and those will lead to big bucks if you sort those out. Otherwise, if you can't, well, you'll lose the ball. But the good thing is, on this particular table, you are allowed 3 strikes before you lose that ball completely, and you can see I'm on my 3rd strike already. But let's try to keep that in play, and if the screen judders, unfortunately that's my screen ripper having to cope with a new ripper setup at the moment, and this was recorded some time ago when I'm simply experimenting with this new software. But I hope you can see that these tables are very colourful and very polished, and the music is great as well, and certainly adds to the playability of this game. But unfortunately that hole in the middle is the destruction of us. If you can't gain a high score, then the best thing to do is to quit back to the title menu, and unfortunately on the WHD load your scores will not be saved to disk until you quit back to the title menu and press escape again and quit the game completely. And I don't mind telling you that this was a live play, one of my competitive plays during that Lemon Amiga competition back in June, and unfortunately I only have the screenshot to prove that I actually scored more than 20 million points on this particular table, because I was so excited to score that vast amount that I actually quit the emulator instead of quitting that game, and so that didn't save to my actual in-game high score table. But you are actually witnessing evidence of that 20 million run at the moment, and as we play through, hopefully we'll figure out how to play this table. Activating the red lights virtually in the centre of that table, we can then go for a home run, which is the ramp on the left. If we can hit that home run and press the spacebar at the very top of that crest, then that should activate the home run, and that means that we can run around those virtual bases. And once we get to the final base and hit home run, then hopefully we'll gain the score from that, and that's one completed. But you have to keep going, have to hit that thing, and remember to press space on the top of that crest, otherwise you'll run out of time and you'll have to try that run all over again. If you try to score a home run without actually hitting that ball into one of those red areas, then unfortunately that won't count for anything. So let's try to activate using that left hand ramp. There it is, and now we can try again. These great graphics that you can see were created by Jimmy Gustafson and Marcus Nordberg, and Jimmy Gustafson went on to the Battlefield series, creating the graphics for every Battlefield game for EA. And this great music that you can hear throughout the different levels, which again is pretty jolly and fits these tables, was created by Per Almered, who also created the in-game sound effects. See, I did not press the spacebar on top of that crest, and so the home run was wasted, and you may hear duck sounds when you waste a run like that, and so we'll have to try that again, and that's adding time to the point where we can make a strike and make a home run. So now with extra time, hopefully, if I angle this correctly, well, sometimes those ball physics are the death of us. Look at that, very quick indeed. That was not speeded up footage, that was an instant wipeout, and that means we've just lost our first ball. Luckily we still have another 4, and that's the great news on this table, since we've only scored 2.7 million so far. Even though the second table reminds me of the ignition table on Pinball Dreams. In fact, it's very difficult to get into, but quite rewarding with all the traps on offer later on. I think this particular table is more like the $1 Billion Game Show in the fact that it is an all or nothing affair. Out of all the tables, this music becomes the most annoying and repetitive after a while, but apart from that, I think the playability is spot on. The ball physics is certainly great. In fact, the ball is slightly heavier than it was in the Digital Illusions games, but to my mind, the major killer of this game is simply the width in between those paddles. As you can see, sometimes no amount of effort will rescue a ball, and that is off-putting to the casual player, even if it is very similar to actual pinball tables. And so I think this game has downsides as well as upsides, and some tables are definitely better than others, although all 4 tables are not quite as good as the first 2 Digital Illusions games. As this game was so successful, the same team stuck together and created Substation for the Atari ST machine in 1995, before returning to the Amiga and the Windows option with Slam Tilt, which is yet another updated pinball game which appeared on the Amiga in 1996. I think the other downside of this particular game is it is not apparently Amiga 500 compatible. It will work on the Amiga 500 Plus and virtually every other machine, but because it wasn't compatible with A500, it sliced out a number of players. And for the longest time I thought that this was an Amiga 1200 AGA game, as the graphics are so highly colourful and detailed, but no, this would run on a stock Amiga, just not a stock Amiga 500. Now I've managed to accumulate 21 million, that's the end of my talent, and that's the end of my bonus score as well. That earns us a place on the highest score table, second in this case, and right about here I pressed enter and saved my high score for the Amiga competition. So let's skip on to the next table, and the final table in this case of the 4, and perhaps it's one of the better ones, certainly either first best or the second best, and it's probably the table where you can gain the highest high score. So let's press that spacebar and let's try to get somewhere on this final table of the 4. And well, this can sometimes be the most exciting as well, but just like the other tables, you'll need to use 100% to launch the ball, and having done so, you'll have to go through a number of hoops in order to gain the biggest scores. Taking the blue top loop, that will complete a stage of the rally, and we are in 3rd position unless we can overtake other drivers, and we will go through those tactics a little later. And you can see by taking the very right ramp we can refuel our car, but before we can do that we'll need to hit those white traps on the very centre, just like that. That earns us some cash, and now we can refuel, and having refueled we can aim for the end of the stage. If you aim for the end of the stage before that, then it virtually gives no points, so there's no point doing that. Let's try to get it up there on the far right, and unfortunately not. By taking the central right ramp, we can also increase our distance travelled, and we can also race at top speed if we hit that stop sign, and that will make us launch very quickly indeed. We can also gain kilometres by taking the left loop, and so there is lots of activity on this particular table. Every time we lose the ball, unfortunately, we'll have to go through the same routine again, so let's fill up this time with some gas, and now let's try to aim for that blue top trap again. Pressing that spacebar, that means it's stage clear. So, well, now we can gain extra stages, then the millions start piling in, and hopefully all these accumulators will start lighting up, and the oil light is flashing, so it means bonuses ×2 are available. think the music is terrific on this level, and the sound effects are highly functional. In fact, those flippers could be sampled from a real pinball machine. I think that the features on offer on this final table make up for the middle two tables, which aren't very interesting, and the first table is again hit and miss. If you can go deep into that first level, then you can accumulate the millions, but the highest scoring table that I played in the competition was this one, where I scored 36 million, which isn't amazing because the highest high scorers gained over 100 million points, which is tremendous. So as we make our way slowly up there, we'll go through the final review and the final magazine scores. I think this game is good. It's certainly very good, but it's not amazingly very good. It's not a classic like the Pinball Fantasies and Pinball Dreams game, but it's not a write-off, and there are, as I say, quite a few dire pinball games trying to cash in on the Amiga. So moving on to the scores, the lowest score came from the Swedish Dato magazine, apparently, who gave this 40%. Amiga Games gave this 72%, along with the one Amiga. The Amiga Concepts magazine gave it 73%, and the current Lemon Amiga score is 74%. Amiga Power gave this game 78%, Amiga Action gave it 86%, Amiga Computing gave this game 87%, and Amiga Dream gave Obsession 90% in August 1995. That gives this game an average score of 7.5 out of 10, and I think it's certainly worth it, worth checking out for all you pinball fans, and there are quite some numbers on the Amiga. And you can see I'm trying to resort to the balancing trick to aim for these things a little more clearly, and as soon as we've filled up, we'll have to return to that top trap to try and double our score, and remembering to press space. Well, sometimes that only activates one light, but if you can hit that sweet spot and bounce the ball on the top of that screen, then you can light all those lights first time, every time. And so I have mixed feelings about this game. There are quite some good things about it, and it's certainly playable, and, well, some things which are off-putting to the player as well, and it definitely requires aiming for targets and putting up with those wide paddle borders. And so I'm running out of my talent now. This is the final ball. We've scored over that 10 million, which is certainly not a third of my highest high score, but I hope you can see the great tables on offer in this game. Our final defeat, and that means it's our final trip to the high score table. So thank you once again for viewing another Lemon Amiga play guide and review. I hope you check this game out and check out other play guides sometime soon. Thank you.